Card, if you don't mind, could you tee this one up between Michigan and Memphis?
So in the battle of former NBA players on coaching staffs between Penny Hardaway and Jawan Howard, unfortunately, due to a very, very slow start, the Memphis Tigers were able to knock off the Michigan Wolverines in the first game of the battle for Atlantis. GregWaddell's Michigan Wolverines by a score of 71-67. And that brings us to the recap. That brings us here. I am Carter Elliott. He is just GregWaddell, not Grug. Is it Gwelly fam? What's the new name?
It's right now it's Gelly fam G Dub. Also, what I'm willing to go by. Yeah, I mean Jelly fam JQ owns me mentally right now. One of those nights. I hope you could hear the pour. I hope you could hear the sizzle there. Anybody watching could see the pour and see the sizzle. I have about a half full can of Jack right now, or glass of Jack, on the rocks, on some melted ice cubes, because I don't even deserve full ice cubes tonight. This was a piss poor performance from my program. This was a piss poor performance from my favorite player in the country, Dug McDaniel, and coming to some harsh realizations about this Michigan basketball team that I thought we had transcended a little bit based on how good they were in the first 3 games of the season. And I'm ready. I'm ready over a nice Jack on the rocks to discuss them and be honest about them.
Okay, where does that honesty start? Because do you want me to say my points, or would you like to lead off?
You can go first if you have points.
Yeah, I mean, the main takeaway for me is that because of the construction of this Michigan team and because of how they played early in the season, you cannot get no-shows for long periods of time from your best player. And your best player is Dug McDaniel. And Dug McDaniel no-showed the first 20 minutes of this game. Like, just it was a no-show. He did get in foul trouble towards the end, right? Did he pick his second foul at the end of the first?
Yeah, he was auto benched.
You remember?
He was auto benched the final 4 minutes of the first half. That is when the lead ballooned from I believe it was a 4 or a 6 point game all the way to a 13-point lead.
True, but he was playing on auto bench mode for the whole game up until that point. He did not impact the game. He was missing shots.
He impacted the game. He impacted the game, just not in a positive way for large stretches of the early first half. There is, like, let's be clear about it. There is no moment that Dug McDaniel is on the basketball floor for this Michigan team where he's not impacting the game. It's all the game is him. The game is Dug, good and bad. It is Dug. The game will be played on Dug's terms. His performance will dictate where Michigan is at. His performance will often dictate where the other team is at. And for the first 10 minutes of this game tonight, Dug was 0 for 5 from the floor. I mean, and look, it wasn't just shots coming in or out. Like, he knows he's supposed to be the offensive engine. He missed a couple good looks early. I thought it got to him. I thought he started forcing. He had a couple fallaways. I mean, obviously he's aggressive. Obviously he takes some crazy shots in general because he can hit crazy shots. But tonight he was taking some shots that didn't even get off because he was fully guarded. Like, you can't just take a shot attempt that's instantly blocked when you're a 5'9" guy. Don't take that. And he tried like 3 or 4 that had no chance, 0.0% chance of going in. And Dug's too good for that, quite frankly. I'm going to stand by the fact that I believe Dug is too good to make that mistake as much as he did tonight, but also to just no-show for as large of a stretch as he did. I mean, you and I both came into this game as bettors, all over Dug McDaniel, over points plus rebounds plus assists. He had 3 total stats at halftime, I believe. Maybe it was either 5 or 3.
He ended up with 5. He had 2 late rebounds.
He had 0 points, 1 assist, and 2 rebounds in the first half, right? Or 2 points, 1 assist, 2 rebounds.
No, 0 points.
Yeah, so he had nothing. He had nothing in the first half. And you were texting me like, I hate Dug. And I was like, Dug might still hit this. Because deep down, even if it's not good for Michigan, like Dug is too important to this offense to not tally numbers. He ends up hitting the number in garbage time, which was crazy. But like, that the point is, if you're that important to Michigan, you can't go scoreless for a half. You just can't do it. I don't care if you're 0 for 5. I don't care if you have 2 fouls. I don't care. Nobody else on this team is good enough. And am I holding my sophomore point guard to the highest standard possible? Yeah, I am. I'm holding him to like, you need to be all conference standard because that's what this team needs. And because deep down, I believe Doug McDaniel's capable of that. I might sound delusional, but we've seen it. When he's good, he's that good. And this team's not good enough for him to have nights where he's not that good.
You don't. And I think that's the most disappointing takeaway from me is that at the end of the day, no matter how somebody feels about Doug McDaniel's a dog. He's a gamer. I don't necessarily think he showed that in the first half, or maybe he tried to and it just didn't go well and affected his team negatively. But for better or for worse, this team is going to go as Doug McDaniel goes. He did not go in the first half, and they found themselves down. That is what it is.
Can I say something that I think this hurts me more than anything I've ever said on this show? I want you to brace yourself for this. You're about to deal with a totally distraught me with what I'm about to say. But I have to hold myself accountable, right? I have to be honest. That's who I say I am. So I have to do it. This is about to hurt me more than anything I've ever said on the Sleepers podcast ever. You ready for this?
Hit me with it.
You said Doug McDaniel's a gamer. Are we sure about that?
I'm pretty sure about that.
Because here's what I saw tonight. When I think of the words gamer, I think of a guy who will do a lot of winning things, whether that's shooting, whether that's passing, whether that's defending, whether that's pulling in rebounds, whether that's taking care of the ball, whether that's leadership, whether that's body language, whether it's coach on the whatever you want. There's a lot of ways to be a gamer. Right now, Doug McDaniel's a gamer in one of those 8 ways. He's a gamer in hunting his own shots. I know he'll do that. He's a shot hunter. He's a damn good one. He's one of the best in the country, in my opinion. And he's explosive and he's fun. Once again, Carr, this is a horrible game. I had fun. I had fun in this game. I said preseason, all I wanted was fun. This was another fun game. But if we're going to be serious about this, if we're going to talk about Doug McDaniel the way I talked about him and still want to talk about him, then we need to hold him to the standards of being an actual gamer. And like breaking news, Card, gamers don't jog back on defense every possession. I can tell you 7 different times in this game that either Doug made a mistake or somebody else made a mistake. One of Michigan's, I think, 18 turnovers? They had 18 turnovers as a team tonight. Doug McDaniel only had 1 of them. But the rest of the team had 18 turnovers tonight. And every time it happened, what I saw from Doug was some head down shit. He's the fastest player on the floor. And he wanted to jog his ass back down on defense. You know what happened? A 1-point game turned to a 4-point game because Doug missed both ends of 2 free throws. He missed 2 of them in a 1-point game. And then they get a wide open corner 3 because Doug's taking his time jogging back. That's not gamer. That's not dog. That's flat out lazy. And it hurts my soul to say this, but you can watch every game, every possession of Doug McDaniel if you watch it as intently as I do, because he's my favorite player in the country. I watch these games with an eye on Doug McDaniel at all times. He's lazy. He was lazy as hell tonight. And this team does not have enough. Like, I stand by this. Doug and Olivier are that good. I think this team's top 4 is right up there with every team in the Big Ten. I still think Namari Burnett was great tonight. Terrace Reed, I thought, was really good at times tonight. That 4 to me is very good. But then we saw the old Terrence Williams tonight. He had a bunch of turnovers. He was 0 for 4 from 3. We saw Trey Jackson be a complete and utter liability every time he stepped on the floor. We saw Will Cheddar pick up a screen, hip checking a guy, and then just leave his man wide open for a 3 in the corner. Like, this team doesn't have depth, and we know they didn't have depth. But at the end of the day, we can either come on here and say we need more from the depth, who are just bad basketball players. You're not getting more from the depth. Or we can say we need our superstars to actually be superstars every possession.
Yeah, but at the start of the season, weren't you getting stuff from the depth portion of it? I mean, you were coming on here saying that everyone got better.
They did get better. They did.
They just had a bad game. Like, but is it just? I'm literally not even trying to be a dickhead about this. Is it just that you can't expect that from them every game? You just got to expect the guys that should be expected from to hoop every game.
I think there's levels to better. I think Terrence Williams got better in the way that Carson Cooper got better. He went from a guy who I think is unplayable to a guy who if he's playing a large role, you're still probably not that good of a team.
Got you.
Now, I get Carson Cooper has a higher ceiling and there's more future to look forward to. But, like, at the end of the day, Terrence Williams, I like him. He's been making shots this year. I give him all the credit in the world. He's not a good starter, even in the form where he's making shots. Like, he is not a good starter on a great basketball team. And this Michigan team needs him to be that because they missed out on all the guys they wanted that aren't Olivier Cromwell from the portal. Like, again, it comes back to this. I hate doing this every single year, man. We did it with Terrence Shannon, and now we're doing it again. But, like, this team had Caleb Love and then didn't, and they didn't get a replacement. So they're literally one starter short. Like, how different? And I said they dodged a bullet. I still feel like in the end, it's not necessarily a bad thing they missed out on Caleb Love, but, like, the bottom line is this team is a wing short. They're either a guard or a wing short. They have 4 players. And when you only have 4 players, that means the 2 guys who are all conference potential good, Dug and Kamwa, can't take possessions off, dude. Like, and we're only talking on Dug right now. We're only chirping Dug. I thought Kamwa was awful for half the game. And he turned it on. The production ended up great. But, like, that dude makes no sense to me, man. He makes no sense to me.
In what way?
When Kamwa wants to, he's the top 3 player in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's his MO, though, isn't it? At least he didn't like.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, I know that's been the MO. Now that I see it of my own every single game, it just doesn't make any sense.
Now that you're a volunteer, now you see it.
It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why Kamwa is objectively great. Tennessee fans should be, like, distraught they lost this guy, right?
Yeah, they should.
Why aren't they? Why is nobody from Tennessee upset that they lost Kamwa?
Maybe because of stuff like this, because he's not consistent enough.
But it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because Kamwa in the second half tonight, Kamwa was brilliant. He was brilliant. Yeah. And in the middle of his brilliance, by the way, literally in the middle of his brilliance, he fouled out and he blew a free throw box out. So I don't understand this guy. I just don't understand him. He's like alley-oop finishing and hitting fadeaway turnarounds with a hand in his face 1 second. And then he's just like blowing mental mistake box outs the next play. I don't get it. And ultimately, man, I think you add it all up. I think this is going to be a really frustrating year because I think when Michigan looks really good, there's going to be like the promise of like a top 15 team in the country there, which is great. That's a higher ceiling than we thought they would have coming into the season. But I think that team's only going to show up once every 5 games, and that's scary.
So that leads to my next thought, or the next portion I want to go with this. Where does this team like go from? Because I split it into 2. Like, this is what, your 5th game of the season, 4th game, 5th, 5th. That first 3-game stretch, that team is a top 25 team. That team is a tournament lock. The team we saw the last 2 games, you call it what you want. I don't think that is a tournament lock. So where does this team go from here, do you think? Because me personally, I'm not saying it's leaning one way or the other. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I still think this is a tournament team. I still think it's there with this team, and they got the pieces. But maybe it's just more of a middle instead of like a certified top 25 tournament lock team.
Ask me in 45 minutes where they go.
In 45 minutes?
Yep.
Why 45 minutes?
Because I'll know if I have to play Arkansas next game or not. Stanford's beating Arkansas with 15 minutes left in this game. So Michigan's about to go from losing a quad 1 win opportunity to Memphis, a very winnable game, by the way. And we can talk Memphis briefly in a second. I was impressed with Memphis. I thought they played well tonight. They also let Michigan hang around when they were playing like dog shit. So like if I get a C performance from Dug McDaniel instead of a D- tonight, Michigan wins this game.
Yeah.
So I think like you would hope you got to win the games at a certain point, right? You can't just rack up tough games. And Michigan's now lost one they shouldn't lose, plus one that's not a bad loss. You would think in a tournament like this, normally if you lose the first game, that means if you're a good team, you get a team you should beat next game. Well, they're about to get Arkansas, unless Arkansas makes a comeback. So Michigan stands a very real chance of starting this tournament 0-2. if they draw Arkansas. They could be 0-2 if they draw Stanford. Doesn't matter. Michigan could lose to anybody right now. But the task got a lot harder. If you draw Memphis and Arkansas and lose both games, you're sitting here 3-3. Who knows what happens next? Like, at a certain point, a good team can't be 3-4 to start the season. So it's gut check time. And tonight it was gut check time. It already was gut check time. After Long Beach, it was gut check time. And what happened? My best two players no-showed the first 10 minutes.
I don't think, okay, but the one good thing you got going for you in your favor is I don't think they no-show 2 games in a row. If they do, then we really got to evaluate some things. Then they might be cooked. But I don't think they do.
But okay, even if they don't no-show, right? We're saying Doug and Olivier are too good not to no-show. In Long Beach State, they were both pretty great. They lost. So, like, that's what it comes back to me is, like, it might not even matter, right? Like, tonight we're blaming Doug, and I'm half blaming Kamwa. But the reality of the situation is the other half of the coin, which is, like, the whole reason why I'm saying Doug and Olivier need to be great is because they need to transcend these bad basketball players that are with them. And guess what? The bad basketball players aren't going away. You know who would be awesome right now? It'd be awesome if Yusuf Kaya could play a minute for this team. Wouldn't that be nice? You know what would be awesome? If Jalen Llewellyn wasn't out with a bum ACL and he hasn't played basketball in 13 months. That'd be nice if he could contribute, right? Or if they had a backup guard that maybe they went out and got to contribute instead of waiting on a dude with a torn ACL to be your backup guard. That'd be nice, right? Like, the roster itself has problems that aren't going anywhere. So that's why Michigan was picked so low in the preseason. And then they got hit with 3 games to start the year of, like, well, wait a second, Doug's way better than we thought. So everything changes now because Doug's way better than we thought. It's still true. It's still simultaneously true that Doug is way ahead of schedule and also that the rest of the team is what we thought they were. That's a problem. Like, I don't know where you add it all up. I don't know where that leaves you because Doug's the best player. He steps on the floor most nights in Big Ten play, but he's got to play like it. Because if bottom line is, if Doug has a bad game, this team's cooked.
Yeah, but I just truly don't think he's going to have a bad. Tonight was an anomaly to me, to be honest with you, and that might be just me how I think of Doug. I just don't think he does this.
So Doug, I mean, a lot of garbage time numbers, but we're saying this was a horrible game from Doug, about as bad as he can play, right?
Yeah.
13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover.
Yeah.
Like, if that's
a lot of that came like, well, actually, no, not a lot of it. A lot of it came actually when they were coming back, at least like assists and everything else wise. He had those garbage baskets towards the end, but yeah, I mean, but that's how good Doug is. Doug is good.
Right. But I guess that the takeaway from me in this game is just, like, Doug has to be spectacular. And I don't think it's necessarily fair. Like, I don't think it's fair to evaluate Dug McDaniel by, like, senior Tyson Walker level standards, right? Doug's not supposed to be a first-team All-American this year. We're not supposed to come on here. Like, Doug is in his trajectory curve of where he's at, he's supposed to still have some growing pains, unless he's just actually amazing.
Tonight's a growing pain for him, and you get 13, 6, and 5.
Right, but that, like, if we're actually summarizing it for Michigan, the point is, like, Doug can't have growing pains. And that feels really unfair for me to say to a kid who's 20 years old, isn't supposed to be a first-team all-conference player, isn't supposed to be on a good team, and we're already at the point where, like, if he plays bad, the team's cooked. But summarize it for Michigan. If Doug plays bad, they're losing the game. Doesn't matter who they play.
Yeah, and even if he plays good, they still might lose. They're not good, right? I guess is that the end of this? They're not that good.
I don't know, man.
When you look at it like that, they're not that good. Like,
I think there's a good basketball team in here, though. I just think it's integral to. I think it's integral to Doug. It's integral to Doug.
I didn't come on here with this mindset, but the more we talk about it, like, I think we might have got, at least I think I got tricked. I think we got tricked. I just don't think this team is that good. I think they are what we thought they were.
No, they're not what we thought they were because Doug's way better than we thought he was.
But we thought Doug was good, though.
Not this good. Like, We thought nights like tonight would be like the normal night for Doug. And this, we're now 5 games into the season being like, that's a disaster night. And he had 13-6-3. Like, that's crazy. That's the point. Is like Doug has rechanged expectations for everything. And yeah, I don't know what you do with it. I still think like in the Big Ten Conference, I still think a team that has Dug McDaniel and Olivier Conwan is going to find a way to win games, right? Like that's top end talent as far as the Big Ten goes. How many teams in the conference have a better? How many teams have 2 guys better than those 2 as a combo?
I mean, you got like Edie. Well, shit, right now in the Big Ten, you really don't know because there's a bunch of combos that are stinking it up.
But it's like Edie and anybody. It's like Shannon and Hawkins.
Yeah.
And it's I guess you'd say Walker, and I don't know who you say is the second. Like
Roddy Galen's that key.
But that's like the point is Doug and Olivier just have to be great. They can't have average games. If those guys are great, I think this team wins a lot of games. And Olivier is inconsistent. We knew that. We don't know if Doug's consistent or not. It scares me. Scares me a lot. Fun loss, though.
Was it a fun loss? Is this considered a fun loss?
Yeah, I mean, we're coming on here like I'm mad. I'm raising my voice for the first time. I'm drinking Jack on the rocks. And like, end of the day, right? My point guard played disaster level basketball and we lost by 4 on a neutral to the 26th best team in the country. Isn't that a pretty good spot? Like, this could have been a 30-point loss. They were down 17 and came all the way back.
You said to what team? What do you say? Their KenPom ranking?
Memphis is the 26th best team in the country. Yeah.
Okay, got you. Yeah, I mean Memphis is a good basketball team, like I said. But when we did the preview, though, we did come in and say this game's, or at least I said, me personally, this game's going to swing me like one way or the other. And unfortunately, as of right now, I got to swing it to. I just don't know. Even if Michigan plays well with Olivier and Doug, which honestly I would bet that they would, just because I believe in those guys and I think they are really good players. I just don't think the rest of this team has enough.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there. Their 5th best player is bad. Their 5th best player and onward is a bad basketball player.
Yeah, but I mean, there's good teams with the 5th best player being bad, though.
Yeah, you're familiar with one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but that's like now I need Doug to be Tyson Walker, right? Like that's sort of where we're at. To beat a good team, I need all-American level play from my little point guard that could.
My little point guard that could.
I love him. I love the kid. I can't be GregWaddell anymore. I can't do it. At least, look, I just got to hold him accountable. He can't be as bad as he was tonight. It scared me. I have one last little tweak to this conversation that I think you'll enjoy, and then I'm ready to move on. We talked about it pregame. I told you to prepare for something. Jawan Howard was on the bench for this game. Phil Martelli was still the acting coach. That's what they called it. Phil Martelli's the acting head coach. But Jawan Howard's on the bench. Jawan Howard certainly was the first person up every time they came on and off the floor. He was vocal as shit as far as I could tell through my television screen. Jawan Howard was the acting head coach, while Phil Martelli was the acting head coach. I don't know what circles you grew up in, what they believe about this, but in my world, if you got 2 quarterbacks, you got none. If you got 2 head coaches, you got none. I hated what I saw from Michigan's bench in this game. I have a lot of different specific things I can point to, but I'll throw it to you first. Did you find this as stupid as I did?
I'll summarize it with this. I hate the 2 quarterback system. And that applies to everything else.
2-man podcasts are good.
Yeah.
Not all.
They are.
Not all.
They are. Huh?
Not all.
Not all of them are good, but also I feel like we don't have 2 chefs in the kitchen at all times. Like when to maybe take a step back and go saute the onions while I prepare the main entree. And like I know when to step back and do the presentation or the chives on top while you're back doing your dish. Can't have 2 guys trying to work on the main entree.
Yeah, you're right with that. All right, here's my pointed thoughts on this. I'm speaking for me. Yell at me if you disagree with me, Michigan fans or any fans. I don't care. This is stupid. It's a gimmick. I hate it. I don't think Jawan should be on the bench, period. And if Jawan is on the bench, I think he should be the coach, period. If either you're ready to coach or you're not. If you're not, don't be here. This team looked good without you. If you are, come coach us. No gray area for me on this bullshit. I thought the bench made a bunch of mistakes in this game that weren't made in the first games of this season. They had a moment tonight where they're trying to make a comeback. I think they were down 6 or 7 points at the time, and they had Doug and Olivier out of the game at the same time. It ended up only being 50 seconds. They got lucky. The ball went out of bounds. But, like, you can't have 1 second in this game where those two guys are both off the floor. There's no point to do it. It's very easily avoidable. Both of these guys play 35 minutes a game as is. You should never have a moment that one of the two of them's out. When it happened, you had like Trey Jackson, Terrence Williams, Namari Burnett, and Shetter on the floor together, and they looked terrified. They got nothing. Namari had to go 1-on-3. It looked horrible. Don't ever let that happen again. And I have a hard time. I don't know. I wasn't there. Phil Martelli was the acting head coach, but I know from my eyes that didn't happen the first 4 games of the season. So I have a really hard time believing it wasn't Jawan Howard that pulled the string on that. You know what else happened tonight, Car? I'm sorry I'm ranting. I know you got words. I'm ranting. I have more to say here. Memphis plays fast as shit. They play the 35th fastest tempo in the country. Michigan's transition offense died tonight. There was none of it. It wasn't there. Why do you think Dug McDaniel struggled tonight? Well, he got nothing in transition. He's been eating in transition the first 4 games of the season. I was told in the offseason, why is there a switch? Phil Martelli looked the camera in the eyes and said, me and Sadi decided we need to run. You telling me it's a coincidence that Jawan Howard's back on the bench and suddenly there's no running? The Jawan Howard teams that have played Hunter Dickinson, slow it down, feed the post ball, his entire tenure here, it doesn't suit this team. They got nothing easy tonight. I have a hard time believing that came from anything other than Jawan Howard himself. I'm frustrated. I think there are very clear, pointed things that are Jawan Howard isms that returned tonight that hurt Michigan because Jawan Howard was back on the bench. Is that too harsh from me? Do you disagree with it or not?
Gregory, we've reached a portion of our podcast episode that we have not reached in a very long time, but I'm very, very happy to bring it forward once again. Welcome to our portion of Carter played D3 basketball in college and played a lot of basketball throughout his whole life. And let me give you a little insight here. If there was ever a game or something where my head coach was on the bench and maybe let's say he was suspended or something, or he wasn't the head coach or whatever happened. If my head coach was on the bench, that's the head coach. That's who's pulling the strings. That's who's the guy. If Jawan was on the bench tonight, he was making the calls. He was telling them. He was telling Martelli. He was bumping Martelli. It wasn't Martelli coaching this game. It was Jawan 100% if he was on the bench. So that's how that goes.
There's one other moment. There's one other moment. Again, now I'm being greedy. We don't want to be greedy, but let me be greedy. Colin was on the bench with 4 fouls. Oh, auto bench. That's another thing that returned. Dug McDaniel, 2 fouls. He's out the final 4 minutes. Lead goes from 6 to 12. Can't happen. Cannot happen in a game like this. You got to, like, Doug's that important. You got to let him play through it. That's a Jawan Howardism. And, I had a nitpicky moment, but Olivier had 4 fouls. He was on the bench with 4 with, like, 4 minutes left. Michigan had the ball. They were down 1. They had been clawing back the whole second half. Michigan's down 1 point. They finally have the ball with a chance to take the lead for the first time in the whole game. And Olivier Kahn was on the bench. You have 3 timeouts with 3 minutes left. Take a timeout and put your second best player in the game while you have a chance to take the lead. Instead, he did not do that. I believe they turned the ball over. Nothing good happened. Queen Meg is behind you and needs something.
Yeah, no, like I said, Jawan was 100% coaching this basketball game. I don't even think it's up for like an argument at this point. Yeah. He was. If he's on the bench, he's coaching. And if you watch the first couple of Michigan, I mean, I'm repeating what you said, Greg, but if you watch the first couple of Michigan games and you watch what was tonight, not the same team. I'm not saying same team as far as making shots or doing anything. Stylistically, completely different. Completely different.
Yeah. Bottom line is Jawan Howard needs a transitional period. I don't think he's going to hit the ground running as a head coach with this team. This team can't afford a transitional period. I can't afford a month of Jawan Howard figuring out how to coach this team. So, yeah, it sucks. The situation was scary. I want him to get better, but you can't drop in the middle of the season and backwalk this team backwards because you're not ready, but you're going to be there. Not good. Go get ready. And when you're ready, show up and be ready and coach this team to play the way they know how to play, which is fast, which is a different brand of basketball than you've done the last 3 years. Otherwise, this team has no shot and it's not going to go anywhere. So, all right, rough. We'll be back to talk Michigan when they lose to Arkansas tomorrow.